The Geet Ruler episode number 100 explanation. When that girl's furious roar resounded throughout the heavens and earth, countless people were dazed as they stared at Wu Yingying, who had her fair face turn red in an instant. The latter's eyes seemed as if her anger would pour out and could burn people into ashes. Multiple gazes started to shift and landed on Mu Chen, who was not far away and had awkwardness on his face. Luo Li and Wen Qingxian both looked at Mu Chen in doubt, as well. Clearly, they had no idea why Wu Yingying would have such a reaction when she saw Mu Chen. What's wrong with her? The twins behind Wen Qingxian widened their eyes from shock. She must be feeling unwell, Mu Chen dryly laughed. Boom! Majestic spiritual energy along with rage swept out from Wu Yingying's body. Her jade-like hands wielded the scarlet crescent blade as she tapped the air using her feet with killing intent in her eyes and shot out. She made a slash, which turned into extremely sharp blade-like that chopped down towards Mu Chen. Lecher, I will kill you. As the unrivaled blade-like lyre swept over, it brought along Wu Yingying's enraged roar. The current her was like a man-eating leopardess. Lecher. Wen Qingxian and the rest widened their eyes as they looked at Mu Chen. Shortly after, Wen Qingxian covered her mouth and smiled, TSK, seems like you still have a love debt that isn't cleared. From the looks it should be an incident behind Luo Li's back, right? Mu Chen awkwardly smiled as she looked at Luo Li. The latter lightly gave him a glance as her eyes flashed with hints of a smile and yet not a smile at the same time, which made Mu Chen become covered in cold sweat. Let's deal with her before explaining. Mu Chen could only dryly laugh and moved. From the looks of it, Luo Li and Wen Qingxian had no intention of helping him. Therefore, he could only rely on himself. Boom! Black lightning spread out from Mu Chen as the center. With a grasp of his hand, a black long spear appeared in his hand as spiritual energy rippled off of it. As the spear flash shot out, it had clashed together with that blade of light. Boom! A metallic crash resounded as erratic gales exploded. The blade of light and spear flash spread out and Mu Chen's figure lightly trembled. The hand that was wielding the demonic dragon-devouring spear felt numbness. Shortly after that, astonishment could not be concealed as it flashed past his eyes. Wu Yingying's strength had far surpassed his expectation. From his estimation, Wu Yingying's strength was not any inferior compared to the three leaders of the Academy Alliance. What luck! Mu Chen could not help sighing in his heart. Who could have expected that his first opponent that he met in the spiritual road was actually not weak? HMPH. Wu Yingying was also a little shocked that Mu Chen could take her attack. She issued a cold snort as her figure shot out, a blade of light turned into a tornado as she unleashed a rampant attack towards the latter. Hey, aren't you done? Mu Chen immediately retreated as he barked. He was also frightened by Wu Yingying's attack that she had used as if she was fighting him with her life on the line. It'll end when I kill you. Wu Yingying nearly cracked her teeth from her clench as she stared at Mu Chen with hatred. Her attacks became more ferocious as the light blades were wreaking havoc that nearly split the space apart. Mu Chen was helpless as he stepped on the empty air. Majestic spiritual energy rippled from his long spear as it drew flashes and blocked Wu Yingying's frantic attacks. Boom! Boom! Everyone raised their heads looking at the spiritual energy tornado that exploded. Two figures flashed past each other like lightning. The strength that Wu Yingying had shown surprised many teams. Who could have thought that such a petite girl could be so ferocious? Hey, that fellow's enemy is a little too much. Seems like this trip to the Divine Wood Mountain remnants will be fun for him. When the three leaders of the Academy Alliance saw the scene before them, they could not endure their laughter, which contained joy in Mu Chen's calamity. The second leader, known as Mo Yu, also slightly smiled as he narrowed both his eyes while looking at the battle up in the sky. No one got themselves involved in this fight, since they remained on the sidelines to watch the show, as they could tell that the companions of Mu Chen and Wu Yingying were not weak. Therefore, they would be very happy to watch the two of them fight to the death. Bang! The blade and spear, once again, clashed, which erupted majestic gales that seemed as if they were going to cause a tear in space. Mu Chen's figure retreated as he looked at the ferocious leopardess, Wu Yingying, and helplessly said, "Do you really wish to fight to the death here with me? Those people in the surroundings are looking at us like monkeys, do you like that?" Wu Yingying blankly stared as her approaching steps halted. She stared at Mu Chen and coldly laughed. "Why? Aren't your guts pretty big? Only now do you know fear." "Back then was a misunderstanding," explained Mu Chen. Rustling. Before he finished his speech, a sharp light blade hacked over. He quickly blocked it with his spear as he roused his head, looking at Wu Yingying's erupting pupils. "What do you want?" Mu Chen felt a headache. "To kill you," Wu Yingying answered as she clenched her teeth. "Please, I am not that hateful. It's not as if you are not aware of the situation in the spiritual road. Even if I were to kill you back then, it would not be too much. See, didn't I let you off back then?" Mu Chen explained. "You call that letting me off?" Wu Yingying was angered to the point that her face turned red. "This bastard stripped me naked and touched every single part of my body before ruthlessly throwing me into the stream. It was harder to accept than to be killed for a girl." Mu Chen guiltily laughed. Back then, when he did it, he had the intentions to tease Wu Yingying. After all, she had caused 2 blade wounds on him, which made him dripping with blood. "Kill yourself on the spot and I will forgive you," Wu Yingying said hatredly. Mu Chen rubbed his face as he smiled bitterly. "Am I that stupid? Then let me kill you." Wu Yingying widened her eyes as she was about to attack again. "Yingying!" A bark abruptly resounded from the back. There was a muscular guy that was with the group that Wu Yingying had come with that blocked her. He first looked suspiciously at Mu Chen, before helplessly saying towards Wu Yingying, "We're here for the remnants. If we were to fight here, it will not be worth it." Wu Yingying coldly snorted and no longer bothered him as she stared with hatred at Mu Chen. At this moment, Wen Qingxian and Luo Li flew over and stood beside Mu Chen. Wen Qingxian, however, was looked at both Wu Yingying and Mu Chen with interest. "I believe that this must be Captain Mu Chen of the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy." That robust youth looked at Mu Chen and gave a friendly smile. "I am Deng Tong of the Martial Spiritual Academy." Mu Chen was dazed as he looked at Deng Tong and Wu Yingying with astonishment. If he comes from the Martial Spiritual Academy, doesn't that mean that Wu Yingying also comes from there? "Ha ha, so it's Captain Deng Tong." Mu Chen smiled as he cupped his hands in reply. "Yingying, you know Captain Mu Chen? How did he offend you? Who knows if it might be a misunderstanding. Why don't you talk about it and we'll work a way out?" Deng Tong looked towards Wu Yingying and asked in doubt. Wu Yingying's anger didn't look fake. Although she usually had a hot pepper temperament, it was still the first time that he had seen her so furious. "You should ask him." Wu Yingying's jade-like fingers pointed at Mu Chen as she clenched her teeth. Mu Chen was dazed as he rubbed his nose. "Then I'll say it." "You're not allowed to say it." Wu Yingying stared with her eyes. Mu Chen awkwardly smiled. Deng Tong and the rest on the side twitched their lips. Clearly, they had no idea what happened between those two. Wu Yingying saw everyone's expressions as her face flushed red. Shortly after, she stared with hate at Mu Chen and said, "You Lecher, you better watch out. I will definitely not let you off." Hearing her shouting the word Lecher again, Luo Li, Wen Qingxian and the rest couldn't help looking at Mu Chen with suspicion. The corner of Mu Chen's lips trembled. He was feeling sorrowful, as if a hero had died. When Wu Yingying finished her words, she turned around and left, dragging the scarlet-red crescent blade. Seeing as she had stopped, Deng Tong and the rest felt relieved. They made a cup towards Mu Chen, before chasing after her. When Mu Chen saw the situation, he felt relieved, as if a heavy load had been taken off of him. He then turned around and saw Wen Qingxuan's ridiculing gaze. Luo Li, looking at Wu Yingying's expression, it seems that she had suffered quite a bit of grievance. Perhaps the matter to this is not as simple as this. Seeing as Wen Qingxian was adding oil to the fire, Mu Chen stared with hate towards her. Luo Li smiled as her expression calmed down and looked at Mu Chen with understanding. "If it's not convenient for you to say it, then don't." Mu Chen dryly smiled. Although Mu Chen appeared this way, why did he feel that if he didn't say it, he would be doomed? Didn't I say it before? Wu Yingying was the first person I encountered in the spiritual road. Mu Chen shrugged his shoulders and explained what had happened before in one go. Naturally, he simplified the story and only said that he had ruthlessly taught Wu Yingying a lesson. After all, back then, when Mu Chen was punishing Wu Yingying, he didn't have too much of a pure attitude. That's simple. When Qingxian smiled, then why does she look as if she had seen a heartless rat that she would not let go the moment she saw you? Mu Chen cast his mouth aside. You're not my wife, why should I bother explaining to you? When Qingxian frowned and coldly smiled, looks like she did not beat you enough. Okay. Luo Li helplessly shook her head and glanced at Mu Chen with slight annoyance, before continuing, anyhow, you better watch out. Looks like that Wu Yingying will definitely not let you off so easily. This is something that you have started, so I will not help you. Mu Chen nodded his head repeatedly. TSK, when Qingxian pouted her rosy lips. Fooled by that loathsome man again. Just when Mu Chen felt at ease in his heart, the spiritual energy between the heavens and earth rippled. Thereafter, everyone could see light runes that began to spread out from around the colossal divine wood mountain that looked like a huge spiritual array and shrouded them. When that colossal ancient spiritual array had appeared, Mu Chen's hands immediately grasped and a wooden plaque appeared. Currently, the divine wood quota was constantly emitting warmth. Omum. Dark green light surged from the divine wood quota that turned into a light ball and spread out. At the same time, 5 light balls had also appeared in the direction of the Academy Alliance, Saint Spiritual Academy, Shua Tiando, Wu Yingying, and the 4 Sea Spiritual Academies. Thereafter, 6 light pillars shot out towards the surrounding spiritual array of the Divine Wood Mountain. Boom! The spiritual energy between the heavens and earth boiled as countless people looked at this scene with excitement. They knew that the ancient remnant that was hidden within the spiritual array had shown signs of opening. 6 powerful light pillars pierced the heavens and into the exterior of the huge ancient spiritual array under the countless gazes. As light pillars shot over, the huge spiritual array also fluctuated with ripples that spread out, making it look as if a stone was thrown into the water. The gazes of Mu Chen and his group stared at the colossal ancient spiritual array. This spiritual array should be the sect guardian spiritual array with unimaginable power. Not to mention them, even ordinary sovereign experts could not break through it. Therefore, they could only rely on the divine wood quota to open it, otherwise, they could only stare at the treasure mountain before them. Fortunately, the unlucky situation did not appear. As the 6 pillars of light condensed, cracks gradually started to spread out on the ancient spiritual array. Thereafter, it turned into cracks that measured a few hundred feet. As the huge cracks appeared, it was as if a huge ancient tornado had spread out from the cracks, which instantly made the heavens and earth look boundless. The light cracks gradually stabilized, as if it was a huge grate that gradually opened. It was the path towards the genuine remnant that had been passed down since ancient times. Gulp. Many people quietly swallowed a mouthful of saliva. Deep in their eyes, boiling heat surged out. The remnant of the Divine Wood Palace have been opened. No idea who it was that suddenly roared. The originally quiet region instantly exploded as countless spiritual energy ripples surged towards the sky. Thereafter, one after another figure shot forth like lightning towards the huge cracks. Let's go. Mu Chen's reaction was also extremely quick. The instant the cracks stabilized themselves, he barked as he shot forth first with Luo Li, when Qingxian and the rest following his steps. Their speed was also fast. Huge cracks spread out on the ancient spiritual array that appeared like a huge mouth from the ancient times as it devoured the locust swarm amount of light figures. In less than tens of minutes, this region, which was filled with countless people, had been instantly emptied out, leaving behind the complete mess that showed the commotion earlier. Far away, there were still constantly many teams that rushed over at their top speed. Clearly, a contest over the remnant that would shake the entire tournament had begun. Just who would gain the biggest benefit from this remnant and which party would be better than the others? When Mu Chen and his group entered the giant cracks, the light ray before them instantly lit up. What appeared before him was an earth-shattering huge mountain. From the looks of it, be it up, down, left or right, he could not see the end of it. The huge ancient mountain was horrifyingly large. Mu Chen and his group was thoroughly startled by the appearance of the huge mountain. However, they had shortly landed their figures onto a mountain peak. The environment here was filled with dark green, emitting vigorous vitality. The spiritual energy between the heavens and earth became especially lively. The facial expressions of Mu Chen and his group turned grave as they realized that the spiritual energy between this heaven and earth was harder to mobilize, compared to outside. This should be a type of special cultivating technique in the Divine Wood Palace. Once a person gets used to this type of place, the amount of spiritual energy that they could utilize when they go back out would increase as well. When Qingxian made a raise with her hand, a spiritual energy shot out towards a huge tree, turning it into pieces. However, in this way, the amount of spiritual energy that we would exhaust when we fight would also increase. Luo Li said with a grave face. Fortunately, we prepared some spiritual pills. Mu Chen smiled as he took a glance at Wen Qingxian and felt admiration for her preparations earlier on. Towards his gaze, Wen Qingxian had a prideful smile rise from her lips. After the days that they had been together, she could tell that although Mu Chen appeared friendly, he was proud to his bones. If anyone wanted to make him feel admiration for that person, it was not an easy task. What should we do next? Luo Li asked as she looked at Mu Chen. Mu Chen first raised his head towards the sky, since there were constant sonic booms resounding as streaks of light that filled the skies fell onto the colossal ancient mountain. The long peaceful years had been broken on this huge mountain. What happened next would probably be all the team searching for treasures in this land like locusts. Mu Chen looked into the distance. Aside from the so-called inheritance in the Divine Wood Palace, it was the 9 Suns Divine Lingji. A crucial item to cultivate the great solar undying body. He knew how precious this treasure was. It was an item that could attract the envy of many sovereign experts. If he was outside and with his strength, it was simply impossible to lay his finger on such an object. But now, it was an opportunity that came once in a blue moon. Therefore, he had to grasp control of the chance and obtain that 9 Suns Divine Lingji. There should be a spiritual treasure mountain in this Divine Wood Palace's remnants. There must be quite a considerable amount of treasures, and among them, there is something that I require. Mu Chen looked towards Wen Qingxian. They were currently working together with Wen Qingxian, so there were some things that he had to be clear on. Spiritual treasure mountain? Wen Qingxuan's slender brow slightly twitched as she lightly said. Everyone that enters here would first look for the so-called inheritance. Yet you would want to look for the spiritual treasure mountain? Aren't you a little confused? Mu Chen remained silent. According to ordinary circumstances, what she said was not wrong. However, he needed the 9 Suns Divine Lingji. He knew that if he were to go late, someone else might be the first to obtain it. Who knew how long he would have to wait before he would have more news about the 9 Suns Divine Lingji? His decisions had a considerable benefit for him. But it was not the same for Wen Qingxian. After the period of time he had spent with her, Mu Chen found out that Wen Qingxian was a girl that had her strong views. Furthermore, when other forces sometimes cooperated with her, she was the leader of the group that made decisions and orders. Therefore, Mu Chen did not have any confidence that he could make such a prideful girl follow the path that he had chosen. Just when Mu Chen had no idea of how to say his words, Wen Qingxuan's indifferent expression turned into smile as she waved her hand. Although your decision might not be correct, I will believe you for once. But I can tell that if there wasn't any harvest in that so-called spiritual treasure mountain that could make me satisfied, I will look for you for your debts. Mu Chen looked at her facial expression that quickly changed. He helplessly shook his head at how hard it was to deal with Wen Qingxian. It was comparable to how he had first encountered Luo Li. Although the latter did not speak much and had just hunted him for half a year. But this Divine Wood Palace remnant is so vast. Do you have any idea of the spiritual treasure mountain's location? Could it be that you are going to search for it aimlessly? Luo Li suddenly asked. When Mu Chen heard her words, he was also stunned. Shortly after, he bitterly smiled as he nodded his head. Although he had planned his path that way, he never expected for the Divine Wood Mountain to be so huge. I admire you seeking treasures his way, Wen Qingxian said as she rolled her eyes at Mu Chen. You have a way. Mu Chen looked at Wen Qingxian. Since you mentioned that there are quite a number of spiritual treasures between heaven and earth in the spiritual treasure mountain, it should be the spiritual treasure garden of the Divine Wood Mountain, which is the location that some powerful forces used to grow the spiritual treasures. All great forces had such similarities. They all had similar places like this, where there is also something similar about all of them. When Qingxian lightly smiled as she appeared exceptionally graceful as she continued, that would be that these places would have the most amount of spiritual energy. Mu Chen rubbed his nose. He came from a small place of the northern spiritual realm. Although his father was the lord of Mu City, a force of that level did not have any qualifications to build their own spiritual treasure garden. Only those forces with a deep and unmeasurable base could have the qualifications and ability to create such high-end stuff. This was something that he had no understanding towards and could only ask again, then how should we search for the location with the highest amount of spiritual energy? You naturally need a special detecting spiritual artifact for that. Were you expecting for us to sense it based on our strength? When Qingxian rolled her eyes at him. We don't have something like that. Mu Chen's face flushed red as he was a little ashamed. What undependable men. When Qingxian sighed as she waved her hand. Behind her, a ball of light appeared in the hand of the quiet and Ya. In that ball of light, there was a compass spiritual artifact which she passed it over to Wen Qingxian. Wen Qingxian held onto the compass spiritual artifact as she transferred spiritual energy into it to activate the spiritual artifact. Thereafter, Mu Chen saw the pointer on the compass rapidly turn, and a brief moment later, a ray of light shot out from the compass which roughly turned into the shape of an arrow. As it lengthened, it pointed towards the northeast direction. We have already found the direction. The spiritual treasure mountain should be in that direction. When Qingxian kept the compass spiritual artifact as she smiled towards Mu Chen, so, you convinced? Mu Chen was a little depressed as he felt that he had nearly turned into a country bumpkin in the eyes of Wen Qingxian. Let's go. Mu Chen cast his lips aside as he spoke without strength. Seeing Mu Chen's expression, Luo Li could not help smiling as she shook her head. She extended her hand to grasp onto his hand, which could be considered as giving him some comfort. Still, my own wife is better. Holding onto the tender hand, Mu Chen laughed before going closer and gave Luo Li a kiss on her cheeks. Luo Li blushed from Mu Chen's sudden action and could only glance at him in bashfulness. Shameless. When Wen Qingxian saw the scene, she instantly clenched her teeth as she stared at Mu Chen with hatred. Ha ha, let's go. Off to the spiritual treasure mountain. Mu Chen laughed carefreely and no longer bothered himself with Wen Qingxian. He held onto Luo Li, and as spiritual energy swept out, it turned into two streaks of light as it shot towards the distance. Behind those two, Wen Qingxian stomped her feet and chased after them with anger. Behind her, Xu Hong and the rest followed thereafter. Within the lush green ancient mountain range, sonic booms resounded as streaks of light drew on the sky as they flew. Because of the air resistance that was created from the high speed, deep traces started to appear in the forest below. Majestic spiritual energy wrapped Mu Chen's figure as he watched the mountains that quickly passed by beneath him. Looking up ahead, he still could not see the end. Clearly, the vastness of the Divine Wood Mountain was a little too frightening. In the other directions, Mu Chen could sense quite a decent amount of spiritual energy ripples. All of those should be from the other teams that had entered this place. With such a huge group entering, it would, without a doubt, wipe off all the quietness that the Divine Wood Mountain had. The constant surging spiritual energy ripples made the area here full of life. Originally, the remnant wasn't so lively, but now it was filled up. Under their hasty travel towards the spiritual treasure mountain, Mu Chen's gaze constantly glanced onto the compass in Wen Qingxian's hands. The light of the Wen Qingxian was slightly trembling as it pointed them in the actual direction. Mu Chen obtained the news of the spiritual treasure mountain from the Divine Wood Quota. There were 6 of them, so who knows if the 5 other owners of the Divine Wood Quota had the same news as well. Therefore, He had to rush there at his fastest speed so he could obtain the Nine Suns Divine Lingji before anyone else gets it. He was well aware of how attractive the Nine Suns Divine Lingji was. Perhaps others could not cultivate the great solar undying body. However, such a treasure was extremely rare, which possessed fearsome spiritual energy. Whether if it was to be absorbed through cultivation or used to refine spiritual pills, it was an excellent ingredient. Not to mention people at their level, even sovereign experts would be tempted by it. Therefore, if someone else knew of the message about the Nine Suns Divine Lingji, he could guarantee that no one could withstand the temptation. Mu Chen pursed his lips as swiftness and ferociousness flashed through his eyes. The great solar undying body was extremely important to him stepping into the realm of sovereigns. Therefore, he would definitely not let any other team obtain that Nine Suns Divine Lingji. No matter who it was that tried to obstruct him, he would definitely not show mercy. Rustle. As swift and ferociousness flashed through his eyes, Mu Chen's speed shot up, and with a rustle, the light around his body extended out to few hundred feet. Behind him, Luo Li and Wen Qingxian closely followed. The group of people passed through the high mountain range, and roughly 10 minutes later, a gap appeared in the lush green before him. It was a vast plains that appeared scarlet yellow. No signs of green could be seen, as if the life force in this area was cut off. These plains were filled with holes, while huge and sinister-looking huge cracks intertwined within the depths that could not be seen with the naked eye. They were dark, like a demon's mouth, as a cold air surged from the abyss. It was as if the abyss was connected to the netherworld that made one's hair stand on the end. The speed of Mu Chen's group gradually decreased as they gave grave looks towards the endless abyss. This place must have experienced a frightening level of battle during the ancient times, said Mu Chen. The sinister-looking cracks were obviously caused by the collusion of some frightening power. Perhaps in the ancient times, this scarlet-yellow region was filled with life, like those places that they had passed by before. However, because of a terrifying battle that took place, it cut off all the life force in this area to the point that only God knows how many years later, this place was still desolate. It was hard to imagine how frightening that level of battle was. Perhaps after that battle, the Divine Wood Palace was gone. Luo Li's gazed at the desolate scarlet yellow. She could see some broken spiritual artifacts lying on the ground. Those spiritual artifacts were thoroughly destroyed without any trace of spiritual energy left in them. Vaguely, traces of bones could be seen on this desolate land. Mu Chen nodded his head as he swept his glance towards his surroundings, since there was the constant sounds of sonic booms resounding. Shortly after, there were figures that made a stop at this area from the distance. Those teams that rushed over here to seek treasures attempted to search this region after seeing that it was an ancient battlefield, trying their luck to find any treasures that were left over from the battle. Let's go. Mu Chen did not have any intentions to take a look here. Perhaps there really might be treasures that were left over here, but his objective was not them. According to the direction that was pointed out by the treasure-seeking compass, we must be close to the treasure spiritual mountain. Wen Qingxian suddenly said as one of her jade-like hands held onto the compass. After hearing her words, Mu Chen's spirit trembled. He did not speak, but increased his speed once again and flew out. Under the full speed of Mu Chen and his group, the desolate land before them disappeared after roughly 10 minutes later. Streaks of light flew over the towering mountain, before their figures stopped as they directed their slightly astonished gazes before them. Before them, there was a mountain peak with gem-like light being emitted from it. That mountain peak was not grand nor majestic but was covered by the gem-like light. As glittering light flashed, it made these treasured stones pile into a mountain range that appeared to be extremely dazzling. The surroundings of the mountain was filled with an earth-shattering amount of spiritual energy that constantly circulated. It was as if there was a rustling noise that came from it that appeared to be agile. Mu Chen and his group felt their eyes stinging from the dazzling glittering light. They narrowed their eyes as they cautiously looked towards it. There was a neatly divided stone platform, and that stone platform looked as if it was built with gems as it was glittering. At the center of the stone platform, there were multiple lotus-like layers, and at the center of them, they could see all sorts of treasures of nature gently swaying from the wind. They were emitting dense fragrances that fluctuated around the heavens and earth that could ease the hearts of others. So many spiritual plants. When Qingxian and her group looked at the treasures of nature that filled the entire mountain, astonishment could not be helped being revealed from their eyes. All these treasures of nature are not ordinary. The Divine Wood Palace's name is well deserved. This is quite the sum. When Qingxuan's eyes lit up. With her understanding towards treasures of nature, she could recognize quite a few of them. All of these were extremely popular in the Great Thousand World. Her line of sight gradually shifted upwards and discovered that the higher the level of treasures of nature in this spiritual treasure mountain, the more precious they were. The spiritual energy ripples being emitted were also much more purified. She looked at the highest mountain and discovered that it was filled with dazzling light that seemed as if there was a sun growing there. Her physical eyes could not see though the object within. Clearly, the treasure that lied over there would be extremely precious. Mu Chen's gaze focused at the highest mountain as well. Fire blazed within his eyes as that light was the same light that he had seen from the Divine Wood Quota. Clearly, what was growing at the highest region of the spiritual treasure mountain was the 9 suns divine Lingxi that he had been yearning for. Mu Chen could no longer stand still as he moved, appearing in sky of the highest mountain. At such a close distance, he could take a close look towards the treasures that filled this region. There were tons of spiritual flowers that had sparkling branches. Every single one of its petals and fruit were filled with extremely purified spiritual energy. Water spiritual fruit, flame spiritual flower, dragon-scaled tree. When Qingxian swept her gaze around as she clicked her tongue. She then smiled towards Mu Chen. You truly have not disappointed me. If we were to obtain all the treasures here, we could at least exchange for some sovereign spiritual liquid from the Great Thousand World. The sovereign spiritual liquid was something that only sovereign experts could create. The condensation of such a liquid was so extremely hard that a first-rank sovereign could only create a small portion of it, even if he had used an entire month to condense UT. However, although it was hard to condense, it was extremely popular among the Great Thousand World. In the Great Thousand World, the necessary factor to decide the foundation of a force would be the sovereign spiritual liquid. Even when sovereign experts cultivate, it would require the help of sovereign spiritual liquid. It was an extremely divine object that would greatly benefit cultivation. Mu Chen had rough knowledge of the sovereign spiritual liquid. However, he was not too concerned about it. Although there were tons of treasures in the spiritual treasure mountain, he was not greedy. He only wanted the 9 suns divine Lingxi and paid no attention towards the rest. What do you have your eye on? Luo Li looked towards Mu Chen. She remembered that Mu Chen had mentioned to her that he definitely had to get a spiritual treasure, no matter what that grows on the spiritual treasure mountain. Mu Chen did not answer, but his eyes were closely fixed onto the highest level of the spiritual treasure mountain. Luo Li glanced over as she focused onto the endless light at the highest level. She fell into deep thought and shortly after, shock was contained in her voice as she spoke. That is the 9 suns divine Lingxi. Clearly, she had heard of the name 9 suns divine Lingxi before. Oh? It was actually the 9 suns divine Lingxi? No wonder you were so anxious. When Qingxian was also startled, this is a spiritual treasure that could even tempt sovereign experts. Mu Chen glanced towards Wen Qingxian. Rest assured, although the 9 suns divine Lingxi is rare, it is not worthy enough for me, Wen Qingxian, to pull my face down to snatch it. When Qingxian seemed to have understood the intention in Mu Chen's eyes as she said with a cold snort. Mu Chen then smiled, since that's the case, then I will take it. When he finished his words, he was about to rush up to the highest level of the spiritual treasure mountain to seize the 9 suns divine Lingxi that he yearned for even in his dreams. Wait. Just when he was about to move, when Qingxian quickly pulled onto Mu Chen's arm. What? You're going to change your mind? Mu Chen was stunned as he smiled. PSH, when Qingxian then released her hand immediately. Thereafter, her expression turned serious as her eyes were fixed on the abnormally calm spiritual treasure mountain. Don't you feel that there seems to be something wrong about this spiritual treasure mountain? Abnormal? Hearing Wen Qingxuan's words, Mu Chen was also stunned. Shortly after, he wrinkled his brows as he looked at the spiritual treasure mountain before him. The entire spiritual treasure mountain was emitting dazzling light that seemed as if it was created from gems. Purified spiritual energy was spreading out along with a fragrance that covered the entire mountain peak. However, Mu Chen did not sense anything out of the ordinary. The point being was that this place was too quiet. However, every single part of the Divine Wood Palace was this quiet. This kind of place is extremely important to every force. Therefore, some forces would lay countless hidden spiritual array traps here to prevent them from being stolen by other people. Although this Divine Wood Palace was destroyed for countless of years, some of the spiritual array traps that they have placed here might not have been destroyed. After all, as long as there is a sufficient amount of spiritual energy, these kinds of things could last forever. Furthermore, from the looks of it, this place doesn't lack in any spiritual energy. Wen Qingxian said as her charming gaze fell onto the spiritual treasure mountain. Mu Chen's brows was knitted together. What Wen Qingxian said did make sense. Therefore, it was better for them to be cautious here. Someone's here. Just when Mu Chen was pondering, Luo Li's voice suddenly resounded. Mu Chen's eyes condensed. There was actually someone here already in such a short amount of time. It seemed that many teams that came into the Divine Wood Palace all made their preparations. Rustle. In the distant, streaks of light flew over and in a few breaths' time, they appeared before this spiritual treasure mountain. When Mu Chen took a closer look at the two approaching groups, he could not help inhaling a mouthful of air. One of the two groups that came here was Wang Zhong's group from the Saint Spiritual Academy. The other one made Mu Chen feel a headache, and the origin of his headache was the fiery red-dressed girl that stood at the front of her group, wielding a huge scarlet-red crescent blade, Wu Yingying. This time, the two groups that came were his enemies. Wang Zhong and Wu Yingying's group maintained their distance. Clearly, they were cautious with one another. However, when they saw that the first to reach here was Mu Chen's group, they fell into daze as their expressions somewhat respectively changed. Wang Zhong still maintained a smile on his face. However, his gaze was a little cold as he constantly looked at Mu Chen and the spiritual treasure mountain. Wu Yingying, however, tightly clenched her teeth as she stared at Mu Chen with hatred. She still had the look of a ferocious leopardess. If it was not for the youth behind her, Deng Tong, holding her back, she would definitely not be able to endure it and charge forth. Mu Chen took a glance towards the two parties and looked into the distance again. Thereafter, he discovered that there was a large group of light streaks that was approaching towards this direction. Clearly, this was a huge group. Although these huge groups were fighting for their own, the amount was extremely significant. These teams were extremely smart. Upon entering the remnants of the Divine Wood Palace, they had followed after Wang Zhong and Wu Yingying, who had obtained a Divine Wood quote from far away. They were well aware that in terms of news of the Divine Wood Palace, Wang Zhong and Wu Yingying had an advantage, since they definitely knew more than them. Therefore, they followed behind them. Even if they could not obtain the biggest benefit, they could still benefit something from it. However, their choice was correct. At least they had found this spiritual treasure mountain. Mu Chen's eyes flickered before his expression calmed down. He did not panic just because of Wang Zhong and Wu Yingying's appearances and tried to seize the Nine Suns' divine Lingxi. After Wen Qingxuan's reminder earlier, he felt that it would not be so easy to seize the Nine Suns' divine Lingxi. Ha ha, Captain Mu Chen, your group has arrived quite fast. Wang Zhong stood on the sky as they looked at Mu Chen's group. He first made a smile towards Wen Qingxian, before speaking with Mu Chen. Captain Wang Zhong, you're not too slow yourself. Mu Chen smiled in reply. There are extremely precious spiritual treasures in this spiritual treasure mountain. So I naturally have to make my way here quick enough. Otherwise, it would be taken by someone else. Wang Zhong smiled as he took a glance at the peak of the spiritual treasure mountain that was emitting endless light. When Mu Chen heard his reply, he could not help narrowing his eyes. From the looks of it, Wang Zhong and Wu Yingying had also received the news of the Nine Suns' divine Lingxi. HMPH. Wu Yingying stared at Mu Chen, before coldly snorting. Her jade-like hands wielded her crescent blade. She tilted her blade as an extremely sharp blade of light flickered. The young girl's charming oval-like face was filled with chill as a raging figure filled her eyes. Ha ha, Captain Wu Yingying, since Captain Mu Chen and Wen Qingxian are working together. Why don't we work together for the moment as well, so that we avoid a situation where we are unable to touch the spiritual treasure mountain? Wang Zhong laughed as his eyes flashed from looking at the scene. Mu Chen and Wen Qingxian were already working together. Although there were only two teams, their fighting strength was absolutely powerful. Although their three teams were not easy for anyone to deal with, there was, after all, some risk. If they could work together with Wu Yingying, then they would have the absolute advantage. Furthermore, from Wu Yingying's attitude towards Mu Chen earlier, it seemed that she had a huge grudge towards him, which Wang Zhong could make use of. Mu Chen's expression turned cold. Clearly, he had seen through Wang Zhong's intention. If Wu Yingying cooperated with them, it would spell some troubles for them. When Wu Yingying heard Wang Zhong's words, her brows twitched as her eyes were a little irregular. She seemed to have been moved by that idea. Although your team is strong, Brother Wu Ling of the Martial Spiritual Academy is not here. Based on your own strength, I'm afraid that you are not their opponent. So if we were to join hands, it would benefit both of us. Seeing as Wu Yingying was a little moved by the idea, Wang Zhong immediately added on to strike the iron while it was hot. Behind Wu Yingying, Deng Tong and his group exchanged glances as they had no comments. They had given the decision-making over to Wu Yingying. Clearly, among their group, it was Wu Yingying that had been making the decisions. Wu Yingying took a glance at the sincere Wang Zhong, before shifting her gaze towards Mu Chen. She realized that the latter did not have any expression on his face. This made her chuckle. Whenever Mu Chen was facing her, he was always smiling, which she found annoying. This was the first time that she had seen the helpless and expressionless look on Mu Chen's face. Sometimes, without any expression was actually a type of expressive mood. You're afraid that I will join hands with him? Wu Yingying said as she stared at Mu Chen. Mu Chen said lightly, you're overthinking things. Wu Yingying coldly snorted as she looked towards Wang Zhong. I will definitely not let this fellow off, but I will deal with him myself. I do not need the help of anyone else. Wang Zhong, who still had a smile on his face, stiffened. He looked at Wu Yingying in amazement. After a brief moment later, he made an ugly smile with his face. What a regret. Mu Chen, on the other hand, looked at Wu Yingying in astonishment. Clearly, he had no idea why the latter would give up on a chance that could create problems for them. TSK, TSK. Wen Qingxian by the side pulsed her lips as she sighed. She approached Luo Li with a smile hung on the corner of her face and said with a deep meaning, why does this Wu Yingying seem like a wife acting in a fit of pique? Luo Li smiled, but she did not reply to her. After Wang Zhong and Wu Yingying's group have reached, they did not make any rash moves towards the spiritual treasure mountain. Clearly, they were not overwhelmed by the spiritual treasure mountain before them, despite knowing how huge of a temptation the spiritual treasure mountain possessed. Behind them, the earth-shattering amount of teams rushed over and stopped at the nearby sky. They shot glances towards the spiritual treasure mountain and instantly, there were teams who had their eyes turning red. That's Ice and Fire Vermilion fruits. Heavens, there are even blood dragon ginseng. This is an extremely precious cultivating treasure. One after another, clamor filled with greed resounded as the breathing of countless people turned heavy. The spiritual treasure mountain before them simply had too many precious treasures. If they could successfully obtain one of them, their harvest in this trip to the Divine Wood Palace would be quite decent. Mu Chen looked at all those reddened eyes as his gaze flickered and lightly smiled with Wen Qingxian by the side. What excellent bait! Wen Qingxian smiled beautifully. Mu Chen smiled as he knew that all these people who had their minds filled with greed could not endure for long. Mu Chen's conjecture was not wrong. After a few short minutes, the atmosphere of those people that was filled with greed became heavy. Finally, there were some teams that could not resist the temptation. With a rustle, there was a team that rushed out towards the spiritual treasure mountain. Following their action, many teams had also moved. Hundreds of teams could be seen moving at the same time as they rushed towards the spiritual treasure mountain. Towards their actions filled with greed, be it Mu Chen, Wang Zhong or Wu Yingying, all of them maintained their cold gazes as they watched from the side. Sululu. Very quickly, all those teams had charged into the spiritual treasure mountain. However, just when they were about to step onto the gemstone-like platform, a brilliant light burst forth from the spiritual treasure mountain as layers and layers of light screens spread out. Bang! Bang! A light screen shrouded as a deep collision resounded. All those teams that had charged towards the spiritual treasure mountain flew back, spewing blood from their mouths with their faces paled. Mu Chen and the rest focused their gazes over at the change of the spiritual treasure mountain. Within the spiritual treasure mountain that was covered by the light screen, not every single one of them was repelled out, as they realized that on every single layer on the platform, there was one figure that was left behind. At this moment, the people that were left behind on the layers gazed around in fear. Clearly, they were frightened by the sudden changes. "What's going on?" Someone cried in surprise as his voice contained fear. Mu Chen and his group looked at the figures that were trapped within the stone platform in Graveness. Thereafter, they looked towards the spiritual treasure mountain in Graveness. In another corner, dazzling light gathered and vaguely, it formed into a light figure. So there really are traps in the spiritual treasure mountain. Mu Chen and his group looked at the light figure as they instantly raised their guard. This episode ends here. Thank you for watching.